Welcome everyone in a new episode of the Daily Dev Roasting DevRel series. We have two great guests today, so I'm really excited for this episode. We also have Nimrod as our official co-host now, and I think that the best way to start this whole event is to hit a sound check. So is everyone here? Also in the chat, say hi. So is everything okay? Perfect.
I can hear you fired up by that intro, Francesco.
Perfect. This I heard this intro I think like 50 times, but it always like pumps me up. So that's great. That's great. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. So I'm sure that people here in this event, they don't need an introduction, but I would like to start. Let's start with Nikolas. Nikolas, it's a pleasure to have you here. Please introduce yourself and very nice t-shirt.
Thank you, Francesco. Yeah, I am Nikolas. I'm a developer advocate at Prisma. We're building a database, a serverless database called Prisma Postgres, and also some more database adjacent tools like an ORM, a caching layer. And actually, I've been with Prisma now for over 8 years. So I started working there in a time when we were actually still called GraphCool, and we were only 5 people. And I've seen this company make several turns in terms of the products that we're building, the kinds of things that we're focusing on, that we're prioritizing, company growth. And after 8 years, it still feels like we're just getting started. So I'm still here, and I'm still excited about the work that we do.
Perfect. We can say that you started working at Prisma before COVID. You know, there's been like before COVID and after COVID era. So
2017, 3 years before.
Exactly.
I still did some in-person workshops and conferences at Prisma actually in the time before COVID.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Prisma doesn't need an introduction. Try Prisma out, of course. And now one of my deepest connections on social media, but we haven't met yet. This may change in 2025. YK, how are you? Please introduce yourself.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for that introduction. First of all, I mean, we have met just now.
I think there is a connection issue.
I'm a real person until, yeah. You never know you never know if I'm a real person until you meet me in person. So you'll see if I'm a Baba.
I'm having doubts now, yes.
Yeah. Shout out to Nick in the audience who I've met in real person, so he can attest to my real personness. And over the past few months, I would say I've gotten pretty good at self-introductions, just because I've done like actually a bunch of interviews with different companies. So the way it goes is usually I started as a software engineer. That's how I started my career at Google. And I transitioned into content creation on my own YouTube channel called CEST Dojo, on my basically building my own business for about 4 years full time. And recently I've done more developer advocacy at a few different companies. And most recently, I am a developer advocate at Sourcegraph.
Nice.
Yes, that's great. So we'll also meet in a few months. So I'm super pumped for that. Great. And of course, I want also an introduction from the other guy in the room. So Nimrod, please introduce yourself, and then we can start this episode.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Nimrod Kramer, and I'm co-founder and CEO of daily.dev, the host of today's show. I have a lot of disadvantages in life. One of them is that I do not code, which allows me to also ask some stupid question and to roast with some of my questions, which is going to be one of the things I'm going to be in charge of today. So the rules for today's live stream are pretty simple. We're going to ask questions. Our speakers are going to need to be authentic, and we're going to ask them some harder questions. We might even push back a little bit. And the idea here is to just talk real. We've all heard about DevRel, about the standard stuff, about the let's say about the shiny and lovely stuff, and we would love to hear and get some unique angles in this show. So our job is to ask the tough questions. Your job is to speak your heart out.
Perfect. So let's get started. And as usual, let's start with a warm up because I don't want this to be like too much traumatic. So let's start with the easy one. So usually we start with like, definition of DevRel, but in this case, I want to twist this question a bit and ask you, how did you manage to explain what DevRel is to some of your neighbors, friends, relatives? And this is a honest question because I'm here for the answer because I tried a couple of times and I absolutely failed. So who would like to try this one and help me in this definition, with this definition?
If you want, I can start. I mean, in your question, you kind of asked what's the most ridiculous way how this has ever been described. And to set expectations, to be honest, I don't think I've ever explained this to anyone in a ridiculous way. I try to actually kind of like convey what I'm doing when I'm speaking to another person, and ideally want them to take that away with them. So like I've been trying to not do any kind of ridiculous comparisons or anything like this. But I totally get your point that it's very difficult to explain to people that aren't developers and that don't have even like an idea of what that entire industry looks like, to explain to them properly what a developer advocate, developer relations, what this actually is. And to me, it even starts at, okay, what company am I working for, right? Because people also are interested not only what you do, but also the company. That's like the first step to understanding your role afterwards. So because we're in developer tools, I think it's very important for people to understand, okay, what is it that is being produced at the company that I'm working at? And then I say developer tools. It's basically digital tools for other programmers. I also like to say programmers and software developers interchangeably because some people react more to programmers, some react more to software developers. So I will try to say both words. And it's really a little bit of a script that then has evolved over the years because I've been doing that job like for so long. So the way how I describe it is typically like this. So you as an end user that is not a developer, you'll never use the tools that we are building directly, but you may be using an app on your phone or a website in the browser that's using our tools in the background. And saying that gives the people something they're familiar with, that, okay, like they know that I've used an app on my phone. They can think about, okay, somehow the code for that must have been produced, and somehow this person that I'm talking to right now is now explaining to me that they are helping these developers building these apps. So that's kind of the approach that I'm taking, really trying to grasp to something familiar that people are aware of, that they know, and then try to go from there and explain. And then the role of developer advocacy is I'm speaking of it in an like as an educator, that because the tools that we're building are fairly complex and the developers need to understand how to use them, my role is to explain to them how these tools are being used and educate them. And I do that by writing blog posts, tutorials, documentation, giving workshops, giving talks at conferences. And from there, you can go into details depending on whether that person's maybe interesting in any particular aspect that you've mentioned.
Thank you, Nimrod. And I think you had like hard times, but I like all this like the effort that you put.
It feels like you suffered. It feels like you've suffered a lot. I agree.
I've done it so often at this point.
Yeah. If you suffer, you can check Daily Dev, where developers suffer together. This was a perfect hook. Thank you so much, Nimrod. Okay, what about you? Have you ever tried to explain what DevRel is to someone who is not a techie?
I mean, this is a funny question to me because I don't even try. I usually just say, I work at a tech company, or I'm a technologist. Sometimes I say I'm a software engineer, which is true. And then if I want to go into like a bit more detail, I'd say, it's a mix of software development and product and marketing. And people are like, okay, that I kind of understand it. So that's about it. But for developers, I like to say that developer advocates are like APIs between companies and developers, but that's only for developers.
Yes, before we go with the next question, I would like to give my own experience in this. So usually I just say, do what YK does. But, for my mom, like I try, to go a bit more in details because maybe she's interested in what I do. So I try to explain different things like developer and developer relations, developer advocate does this, and that. So she has been thinking, and then she said, okay, so it's basically a person who gives like flyers to developers. So this has been my mother definition. This is what she got from definition from developer relations. So if I ever write a book about developer relations, it will start with this, my own definition given by my mom.
Well, I have a suggestion for you.
Yeah, please go.
Maybe you can try this. So think of a kitchen equipment company. And this is not just an ordinary kitchen equipment company. It's for professional chefs. And a developer advocate is like a chef advocate. You're there as a professional chef, trying your products, giving feedback on like, is this knife good? Is this cutting board good? Stuff like that. That's who you are. You're there to represent a specific profession. In this case, chefs or developers, whatever that might be. That's kind of how I would put it.
Perfect. I'll probably use this in the next upcoming barbecue at my house. That will happen in a couple of weeks. And then I'm thinking about switching my career to chef advocate because honestly, it sounds very good.
I actually got cornered one time. I don't get asked this question a lot, but there was one time that my dad asked me because he saw some of our events with Francesco, and he said like, what exactly is developer advocate? And I gave an explanation quite similar to what Nikolas said. He said, there's some products could be complex for the end user, and you need someone to like mediate and explain the complexity and help them win and become successful in the product. And then my dad goes, so if the product is complex, it's probably not good, right? Because the best products are quite simple. So if you need a developer advocate, your product is not good. And I'm like, wait a second, let's go back to the beginning. And we started this loop that was very, very difficult to get out of.
He does have a point though, and I've been thinking about something like similar, right? But what is the software tool, the developer tool that really works without a manual, without docs, that just takes you through its process, through its flow? It's very hard to reach that, but I think that's a good goal to aspire to.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Speaking of complex versus simplified things, what would you say is, from all of your experience, and both of you have done many things over the last years, what is the most overrated DevRel strategy or DevRel activity that you still see companies wasting money
on? For me, two things come to mind that I've seen in Prisma in these 8 years kind of being reiterated and being brought up over time and trying to do it. This time we're doing it for real. So one is like an ambassador program or something like this. That has been really difficult. I mean, when we started the last attempt, I think 2-3 years ago, we kind of made these plans for how we wanted to engage these. And of course, you've got ideas and goals, what you also want to get out of that community. If you actually can create a group of people that engages with you as a company on a very regular basis, that can be very valuable. Ideally, you get things out of it like actual user feedback with a very kind of direct connection. Ideally, also things like content and social amplification, of course, that they start to create content about you. And to pull that off is very, very difficult in terms of, I think, keeping people engaged over a longer period of time. And you really need to find some good incentives for these people, I think, if that should be successful. And for us, that was always a struggle, because keeping them engaged and making sure that they are creating content and are present on social media and your community and all that just has proven to be difficult. I think people have their own lives and their own jobs already, and then it's hard for them to see their ambassadorship with another company as something that they really need to commit time and effort to. So that has proven a bit difficult. And then the second one was hackathons that we've tried every once in a while, but also like we haven't done them in a while because they've also never been like really successful. I think we've never gotten that much out of it.
What would you think is, like, if you would imagine a successful hackathon, how would it look like?
To me, it would probably a prerequisite I would probably make like for that is to do the hackathon in person. To me, I think that's a lot more of the experience that you actually want from a hackathon, that you want to have this creative energy that arises when people come together and work together on their ideas, as opposed to it being online, where again, it's very difficult, even then if it's over an entire weekend, to keep people engaged. It won't be as fun for the attendees either. It's not as like exciting to just like sit by yourself and work something like over the weekend, even though probably a lot of us are doing that anyways over the weekends. But yeah, it would probably be an in-person hackathon, and yeah, trying to put it into a good, like, personal and creative atmosphere from the beginning. Maybe even doing some interactivity for people to get to know each other at the beginning, so that it's not an anonymous experience, but when the people leave afterwards, that they really like take a feeling of connection away after this event.
Awesome. Well, okay, where do companies waste money when it comes to DevRel?
All right, I'll give what might be a controversial take, which is Twitter.
Francesco, hit the record button now. Just kidding.
It's already on.
So does Twitter matter for developer advocacy? 100%, it does matter. But quick story here. I was talking to this pretty big company, and they asked me, can you grow our Twitter account from 7,000 followers to 30,000 followers in 1 year? I was like, I probably could, but is it number one priority? And he said, yes, it is number one priority. I was like, why? And I say that because, you might get 30,000 followers, you might get, 5,000 likes, whatever that might be. Are you reaching the right audience? You might be, depending on the particular audience that you want to focus on. If you want to focus on, let's say, an open source audience in particular, open source contributors or Web3, then Twitter might be the right platform. But if you want to reach for, let's say, senior developers, the developers in general, let's say North America, that might not be the right platform. It might be LinkedIn, it might be, any of these other platforms. But people seem to over focus on Twitter, and I get annoyed, pretty much every time.
So is engagement on social media actually a sign of impact, or is it more of an ego metric at this point?
I think it's more of the latter. I mean, of course, again, does it matter? It does, 100%. Does it matter the most? I don't think so. I think YouTube matters more, in my opinion. LinkedIn matters more.
It could also be a question of where do we use our developer advocacy resources, right? And to me, Twitter, and if I hear that, right, we want to grow our Twitter account from this to that, that's like top of the funnel marketing. And to me, like, developer advocacy is a little bit further down in the funnel, where the quality of the content and your actual skill and capabilities as a developer educator are put to better use rather than growing some Twitter account, which you could hand off to maybe like more of a marketing team that's not as technical and that can do like most of the work there. And you as developer advocacy, you just give the input that's needed for them every once in a while, but you're not the responsible person to really do all of that and manage all of that. I think that's also a question like where do you put these resources? And like growing a Twitter account, that's to me like really marketing, which I think could be spared in developer advocacy sometimes.
Yes, I think I like the YK's unpopular opinion. Really love that. I think it also depends on the company. I don't know if a company is very technical, and also in your depends on the developer advocate himself. Probably they asked the YK because he's like a Twitter master, but I like his point of view. I think that the social media for a company should like help the company to get more clicks and new users, and not the opposite. Because I will keep repeating this down this hill that growing a company account is absolutely different than growing a personal account. I think it's probably a different skill. I think it's the different things, and that's it. So yeah, thank you, YK, for sharing this. I think my very quick take is that probably you asked like how they waste money. Probably like for the videos, I think that like having a very long and detailed video, some people are very great at that, but that takes like a lot of energy and efforts, and maybe including like the designer and then an editor, outsourcing the editor, and having like a very long complicated thing. Probably it's better to do like short tutorials or something like that is like straight to the point, instead of doing like the whole like explaining everything in a single video that might take like a lot of energy for the company, for the developer advocate, and for the whole team. So that's the thing. But probably it's a bit underestimated how much does it take to create a 1 hour course on all the features for a company. But it depends. Some people can be great at that. If you're in the chat, you can drop your point of view and tell me like what do you think that there's been like some waste in money for DevRel. Great. Thank you so much, Nikolas, and thank you. Yes. So and now let's talk about vanity metrics. So since we are talking about metrics and ego, I think so. What do you think is an overestimated metric? Everybody love, and then it doesn't really matter in the end. So
and don't say GitHub stars. GitHub stars is excluded. Now go.
YK.
Sure.
Yeah, if you want to go start.
So I think continuing on the theme of Twitter, impressions, especially Twitter impressions. So for those who don't know, it's a marketing term. First of all, if I say views, I like views. If I get like 1,000 YouTube views, 10,000 YouTube views, that's a concrete thing. People clicked the video, or people started to watch the video like for a second, whatever that might be. But there's intention behind every view. Impressions are different. Impressions are just like you scroll through really quickly, that counts as an impression, or it's like on the side a little bit, that counts as an impression. So if you have 1,000 impressions, what does it mean? It doesn't really mean anything. Like it's pretty, like you can make a chart out of it. It can look pretty, but it's a misleading metric in my opinion.
And do you see companies really focus on impressions? Like I didn't come across that very often.
I don't think companies focus that much on it, but it is. I have seen it, and I like to look at it sometimes, but it's just not that useful.
All right, so Nikolas, for you, we're going to tighten up the question a little bit. So the question is not name a vanity metric. The question is, what metric do you secretly believe that is completely meaningless, but you've seen companies track it anyway? and the companies think that it has a lot of value, but you think it's completely meaningless. There are tons of vanity metrics out there. All right, we can list probably like 100 if we go, but I want a vanity metric that companies think matters, and actually it doesn't.
I don't know if I have a good answer for this, to be honest. Like maybe because I've been just at Prisma and haven't been at so many companies. In general, I have to say that our current like metrics, I really like the setup and how we've iterated like on them over time. But I would kind of just like +1 with what YK said with the impressions. That these get overemphasized. And I wish I had a better or more exciting answer here, but metrics is not a thing that excites me, and I just don't spend too much time thinking about it, and like neither about the vanity ones.
So let's ask the other side of the question. So what is the number one metric that matters to you the most in your job?
So I think that the active developers that like we're measuring is like one of the like most important metrics for our open source tools. And because it's very different, it's like very difficult to even get these like analytics. Was kind of like quite a project to even be able to somewhat reliably track that, because I mean, you can look at NPM trends, you can look at GitHub stars, but these don't really give an indication of how many people are actually building serious like things with your tools. So we've built a way to measure that, and that to me always has been like one of the most important metrics, because it shows like, do the things that we do as a company, but also in developer advocacy, being the interface to these developers, is that really like what's helping them building tools and applications successfully over a longer period of time with like our tools? And that's on a product level, but of course also on the content level that we produce as developer advocates, and and also help improve the products through the feedback cycles.
And were you able to see direct impact? Because I think that one of the probably like biggest criticism that a lot of companies have on DevRel is that at the end of the day, it requires to put a lot of effort, but oftentimes it fails to drive actual product adoption or meaningful product adoption. So do you think it's like directly related, or does it require some sort of like leap of faith?
So it's the hard problem of DevRel, right? To really make sure that the things that you're doing somehow impact like some of the numbers. And it's a lot less easy to track that as if you had like a SaaS app where you can easily measure conversion and things like this. I think the developer journey is a lot more complex than a traditional user journey. So we can hope, and I think the times when we do see the impact is like launches, right? We had a big launch of like Prisma Postgres back in January, and since that went to general availability, then that's really what like where we can still see the impact of that launch and the content that we've created. But yeah, oftentimes it's more of a leap of faith.
Thank you so much, Nikolas. And I think this was a very, very nice one. We are 29 minutes now into this live, and we haven't mentioned AI yet, which I consider this as a huge plus, I think. But I think that now it's finally time. So before we hit the 30 minutes hit mark, it's time to ask like a real question that you might have some unpopular take, I would say. So what about the relationship, the complicated relationship between AI and DevRel? Do you think that developer advocates will be replaced by AI, or is AI helping DevRels? Because, and I think this is not like just a cliche, because as a DevRel, we wear many hats. We have many things to do. And this really goes very well with AI. So what do you think about AI? So my question is that will we be replaced by AI in 2026? Now I see that you are scared now. Yes, go, okay.
Sure. I love to answer the previous question, but I'll answer this one first. So will DevRels be replaced by AI? No, not from what I've seen. I actually had this I guess, this sense of dread a little bit, or I don't know if it's a dread, but basically, a colleague of mine was coding a lot, and I was like, how are you coding so much? Like, you didn't used to code that much. But I realized, he's able to produce a lot of code now because of AI. So I was like, okay, what's my value then? So I started to kind of think about it, but I realized the true value of a DevRel is not like the act of like typing code or typing documentation, but the act of like making a good judgment. And at the current state of AI, it's not that good at making the best judgments, compared to like the best people who are able to do that. So what I mean by that is, as a DevRel, I found that AI is helpful for doing my job faster, like writing my talks or writing my blog posts, stuff like that. Writing code. I'm definitely a lot more efficient with it. Maybe 20-30% more efficient, whatever that might be. But the core part of my job, making good judgments, communicating with people, and even like improving the product, like what improvements to make in the product in the first place. AI can't do that. I'm not gonna say it's not going to be able to do that forever, but for now, it's not.
So I want to suggest a slightly different angle, YK, since
Sure.
I roasted Nikolas earlier. So now I'm gonna try to put you on the spot. So let's, of course, I think the question of whether AI is going to replace DevRels or for that purpose, like almost any kind of job, the answer in most cases, especially for technical roles, is no, and it will multiply our productivity and so on and so forth. But all right, when it comes to DevRel, I think that one of the things that would fundamentally change, and if DevRels will not change accordingly, they will probably lose jobs, is that up until very recently, developers would engage with your product and they would have certain difficulties or certain challenges and some friction. And the way to solve that friction would be either to go to Google, to go to a community, Discord channel, to try and communicate on social media, and developer advocates were there to help these people. Now, the way people write code, as you rightfully mentioned, is going through some pretty fundamental shift. I don't know how fast this shift will happen, but people will engage more with agents to help them write their code and with other types of AI to write their code. And isn't the job of DevRel in 2025, 2026 actually to be the advocate for those AI agents? All right, so you, instead of communicating with the developers, you need to create the tools and the content for these agents that are assisting the developers in their job.
That's a good question, and I think the answer is it depends. So as a DevRel, you could have like many different kind of types of job. If your job is more of more of like a support type role, let's say you join these shared Slack channels with your customers, and your job is to answer people's questions, then I would advise DevRels, if you're watching, to say, okay, can I replace my job? If so, you should do it. Like, instead of like waiting for someone to make that agent yourself. You might end up like creating something from scratch, or you might end up adopting a different company's technology. Either way, you don't want to wait for technology to replace parts of your job. You want to kind of be proactive about it.
That's great, but isn't like the real fundamental shift here, just raising it, and guys, feel free to just pitch in and answer. Isn't the real job here going to be to advocate for these AI agents, right? So the entities that are going to face difficulties are not going to be developers. So developers are going to prompt something, and the thing that would go after a solution will not be a human. It will be an AI. So we, or you guys as developer advocates, don't you think you would need to fundamentally change the way you think of content and making this content AI readable, just if there's even such a thing, right? But should you create content for AI rather content for people in the future? Should you write docs and create communities for these AI agents rather than for the developers?
Okay, so what you're saying essentially is that the target audience changes from developers to AI agents that are being controlled by developers or people like that. And it's an interesting thought, and I think there is definitely truth to that, right? Because we see that these AI tools start writing a lot of code and are taking a lot of that responsibility over. But it's this interesting thing about vibe coding, and at least the current state of it where we are today, I think. And I don't know how much like you've played with these tools, but I think that if you go beyond like a certain level of complexity and you're not that familiar with the technologies that you're using yourself, the AI agent at some point will not be able to deal with that complexity anymore, and subtle bugs will start creeping. So it's very difficult to, as of today, imagine a future where only AI agents are entirely responsible. And I still think there's going to be a human entity somewhere that in the future will do different things than a developer does today, but that we'll still call a software developer, because it's still a human ultimately that has to take kind of responsibility over the code that is being deployed in the end in some capacity. And so but the way how we create content then shifts, because I think that these AI agents are a new part of the audience, but we have to juggle both kind of, because we can't entirely neglect the humans in that formula.
I am with the Nico.
Yep.
Sorry, go. Okay. So.
No, go ahead. You go first.
No, I was just taking this and then I was just passing this quickly to you. So I liked the last take by Nikolas. So before letting Weke give his take, I think that yes, there will be a shift, and this is shifting. The things are shifting way faster than a person's career. So that's the real issue of AI. If it was like 200 years, it will not be my problem. I think that since there is this shift, probably developer advocates will have to shift and make not directly create content for AI or like let's say having this agent, but rather than pushing other developers to use AI with your company, related to your company more. I don't know. Nikolas can explain you how you can create something with Prisma using AI. So he is basically the bridge between me and AI. So I think that this is where developers should focus more. So help developers to use their tool with AI more than just creating content directly from AI. And yes, okay, I would like to know your take.
Sure. So my take, I don't think it's too long, but I agree with the last thing Nikolas said, where your audience will include agents, and that's kind of a funny way to put it. But the way I think about it, fundamentally, I don't think it's going to change that much. So when I think about like Google, at some point, if you write like blog posts or landing pages and stuff like that as a developer advocate, then you need to think about Google as an audience in a way. That's called SEO. And I think agent optimization is going to be a thing too. So I guess it's going to be called, I don't know, instead of search engine optimization, it'll be AO, I guess, agent optimization.
Sounds awesome. So I have a good question, because Francesco, you probably afterwards have like a closing question for the session. So my question goes like that. Imagine a matrix, all right, of 2 parameters that creates 4 different personas. All right, so we have like people who are, whether they're smart or dumb, sorry, my language, right? People, DevRels, smart and dumb, and motivated versus lazy. And then it creates 4 different personas. It creates DevRels that are smart and motivated, DevRels that are lazy and motivated, right? that are dumb and motivated, DevRels that are lazy and motivated, and you got all these. So we have like smart and motivated, dumb and motivated. We have smart and lazy, dumb and lazy. These are like the 4 different personas. Now, when you think of DevRels in this perspective, who do you think is the worst type of DevRel that could cause a lot of damage for the brand or the company they represent?
That's such a pretty question. Oh, first of all, why this 4 categories? You could have like 8 categories, 16 categories.
Just to spice things up.
Well, one thing I thought was that it can't be the lazy one, because the lazy one in a way looks for great solutions, for better ways, more optimized ways of doing things. So hopefully like that kind of developer advocate would still contribute in their own lazy ways. So then it's probably the one that's engaged or engaged
motivated
and maybe dumb. I don't know.
I'm sure, I'm 100% sure of my answer. We can even check with ChatGPT if I'm wrong or right. I'm sure it's the dumb and motivated one, because they are doing intentional damage. Why? Because they're dumb, of course. So this is my take.
And if they start using AI, will that make them even more dangerous or less dangerous?
More dangerous.
AI amplifies who we are. It's like alcohol. So you know what the final effect will it be.
What do you think,
Right.
Like?
Yeah, so Nimrod is trying to put us in his matrix. I like to make my own matrix.
Go ahead.
So I want to categorize developer advocates in 2 axes. One is fast and slow. The other one is careful, not careful. The worst type is not careful. Like whether they are fast or slow, if I work with someone, I want to know that I can rely on this person. Like if I ask them to do some work, if they might be really, really fast, but if I need to like fix everything, that's not good. Or if they're slow and not careful, that's probably the worst case. Because
can you define careful? Because there's something about developer advocacy that sometimes you need to stand out, right? Sometimes you need to create unique things that people haven't seen, just because there's a lot of noise, right? And it's really difficult to surface up. So what do you mean when you say careful versus non-careful? Like, how do you define non-careful person?
I think it's about reliability. So it's about, do they make a lot of mistakes? Are they like careful? Like if they write code, is it accurate? Is it correct? And the other thing is, if I, let's say, ask someone to do it, if they say they're going to do it, can I rely on that to actually happen, or do I need to follow up? That's how I define it.
Got it. So it's about reliability and accountability in your perspective. What do you think, Nikolas?
Well, yeah, I think, the dumb one that's just like super motivated, that can cause a lot of damage. They will just like create maybe content that's not like very precise or something that trips people up, and then afterwards you have to go and fix that because people then like run into these issues or have learned things the wrong way that you have to clean up after them in a way. And I think that's a potential risk that comes with that quadrant of your matrix.
So we definitely do not want to welcome vibe devreling when it comes to these type of people. Bad idea.
We have to set the bar higher.
I think it applies, by the way, to software developers to some extent, right? So vibe coding is very accessible. Everyone can go ahead and try. Like the barrier of entry is very, very low. But if you don't have the fundamentals and you don't know like how to build like proper systems, and if you're doing a side project, that's fine. That's nice. It's a good way to explore and learn and educate yourself. But if you're building something in production that should serve like real customers and users in scale, and you just don't know the fundamentals of what this AI thing generates for you, then that could cause a lot of debt in the good case, and in worst case, like things that are way worse than just technical debt. Cool. Francesco, I'm giving you the mic.
Yeah, yes, and I mean, it's funny that we're actually talking about this. Like, should we really talk about like you should not write random stuff in production? Now we have to, because we have AI, and now we have to tell you in these events that yes, you should be careful about writing random stuff in production. I feel we are at this level now. Yes. So now I think let's make a quick one, and then we want to wrap up. By the way, I'm really enjoying this one, and so let's do a single one for something that you hate and about DevRel, and something that you love. But I would like really you maybe to think a bit about that, and maybe find something that is not that popular. I don't know, something that most developer advocates they like, or maybe developers they think that you should like, and instead you hate it, or the opposite. So what is something like that? For me, for example, I hate the word networking. Like, so I hate everything which is related to that. For example, something that you don't like in this DevRel rule, and something that you really like, would like to start. Nikolas.
Yeah, I can go. So one thing I think that is a constant discussion in developer relations is the difference between value-oriented marketing and feature-oriented marketing. And what I can't see anymore is when people put on, or most dev tools do this. Actually, Prisma is guilty to this to some extent as well. But if you go on the website and the main tagline just says ship faster, and this like ship faster to me is so worn out that at least for me personally, also I think with a developer background, I react more to the feature-oriented approach of marketing, where the company tells me like what it is that I'm looking at, so that I don't have to scroll through like their landing page to then kind of get the hints, but I want to know like from the first tagline essentially like what they're talking about. So this like this like ship faster phrase is something I think that like has been quite worn out in DevRel.
The only thing which is worse is blazingly fast. That's
yes,
that's the top.
Fair enough.
This and auto magically, yeah.
Auto magically. We are removing a lot of automatic behavior in Prisma right now, actually. Has caused nothing but trouble.
Okay.
Wait, are we talking about words we don't like, or like aspects?
You
of
can
the
do
job?
we can do both of them. Like we talk like something that comes up in your mind, like something that you hate about DevRel or love it, or maybe which is a bit unpopular. If you have one unpopular one, I would like to hear that one first.
Actually, one that comes to mind right now is when I'm supposed to advocate for a product I don't quite believe in. Yeah, that's hard. Or like a feature that I don't believe in. And I mean, I do my best to at least, help them polish the feature and everything, but it's a struggle.
I appreciate this. I really appreciate this answer. I think it's a struggle in the DevRel, and I like it to say that like sometimes you don't hate the whole company. You don't like a single feature, so it's not that you don't want to be there. But say I don't know, this feature that everybody they love in the company. Maybe you already know that it will be hated for some reason because maybe you are connected with the community even more. So really love this take. So hate on single features.
Right. I mean, hate is a strong word. I would say, discomfort.
Discomfort. Okay. Really love it. Nimrod, I think that you can also give an answer because DevRel, you can also give your point of view of like hating or liking.
The thing that triggers me the most, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this DevRel roast show, is that And I feel that more recently than it used to be a few years back, that a lot of DevRels just love to give the right answers and the things that everyone can agree on, and the things that, you know, are easy to hear and they could just get away with it. And I think that a lot of DevRels are actually very, very smart people, and they have very strong opinions, and they have a lot of emotional intelligence, which is what makes them great at their job. But too often they keep their opinions to themselves, their real opinions to themselves. And one of the ideas here in this particular show is to try and surface some of these opinions. Obviously, in under 1 hour, we can't touch all points, but I think that this show was slightly different from other shows that I've seen around DevRel in the last couple of years. So thank you, both Nikolas and YK, for contributing your authentic selves into our small little experiment here. And I hope you also enjoyed answering some of the easy questions, some of the tough questions as well.
Yes, I think they did an amazing job. So since I agree with you, Nimrod, I would like maybe both of you to give some final thoughts. And also, if you want, you can also tell us a bit more about what you do in your job, what your company is currently doing. So I would like you also to know a bit more from both of you. So I would like to start. Maybe YK, you can go with you. Then we'd like to know more about Sourcegraph, what you're doing there, and then do some final thoughts about this.
Sounds good. And how much time do I have?
1 hour, but we will cut the live stream in a few minutes anyway. So if you can keep going.
Okay. I mean, I could wrap it up in 1 minute. So I wanted to start with the question that I didn't get to answer earlier, which is, I think, what's the favorite metric that you track, something like that. To me, it's one word, and that is retention. And I don't always get to work on that. But, Nikolas mentioned like a funnel. That's like a marketing funnel. You start with like not knowing the company, and then you go to like, okay, reading the documentation, downloading the product, trying the product. The most important thing to me is actually retaining the customers, because unlike Twitter impressions, retention actually means something. It means that customers tried your product, they liked it, they may or may not pay for it, but they keep sticking around. They keep coming back because it's good. That, to me, that's the most important metric. I sometimes think about like movies, movie marketing. What's the most important thing, to movie marketing? It's the movie itself. If the movie is good, people kind of refer each other, tell each other about it, and it's going to be a popular movie. I think software products are the same thing. If retention becomes higher and higher and higher, that means the product is getting better and better and better. And eventually, people will start to kind of refer each other, tell their friends about it. So that's what I care the most about, as a developer advocate. And that's what I try to focus on. I think the golden kind of path of a developer advocate is to improve the retention before it's measurable. That means, before it's publicly available, you try the product and it gets better. That's what I'm trying to do with this new thing that we're working on. And you should be able to find it on Sourcegraph's Twitter, ironically, timeline.
I love this final plot twist. So this really changes everything now, because now he's redirecting you to the Sourcegraph Twitter. I love it. Nikolas. Thank you.
All right. Before I also talk 1 minute about Prisma, I also want to go back and talk about. So I've talked about the things that I didn't like in DevRel, but I want to say the number one thing that is my favorite activity and favorite thing to do in DevRel. That's maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but that's going into Reddit threads where Prisma is being flamed and everybody's just trash talking. And I love to go in there and actually engage with the people and react in a constructive and friendly and kind and polite way. Because quite often you'll see that people who in the previous message threw swear words at you, in the next start an actual conversation where they're talking about the things that they have experienced. And of course, very frequently they actually have a point. There is a valid reason to their frustration that I want to learn about as a developer advocate, because I don't think it's good that they have this frustration. And the problem is just that they're going on Reddit, where it's the norm to just rant on stuff. So like you have to turn them around, and that's one of the most satisfying things that happen in developer advocacy, when you're able to turn around such a conversation. And then to just quickly close with what we're doing at Prisma, I just want to mention that if you ever need a Postgres database for a full stack app that you're building, or just a backend, then you should check out Prisma Postgres. It's the first serverless database that's built on unikernels and that has no cold starts. And I would love to talk more about this. Francesco, before the show, we've already talked about maybe having a separate session where we dive deep into the technology there. But for today, I'll keep it at that. And you can find all the info if you're curious, of course, on the Prisma blog and website.
Yes, of course, we can do that. And I think Nikolas, yes, is the William Wallace of DevRel. So for like going, in the behind the enemy lines. So really love that. We probably created a meme with AI for this, but I appreciate that. And that's that's a hard work, but someone has to do it. Has to do that, Nikolas. So thank you. And I think this really made you very, very strong. I'm sure about that. So.
I've seen a lot.
Nice. Great. Nimrod, really enjoyed this episode. It gets better every time. So let's do some final remarks and then let's wrap it up. You're muted.
I think that's it. We're about to end, and I once again want to thank everyone who participated as speakers and as audience. We had a pretty engaged audience today, so it's awesome to see, and there's plenty of content for us to repurpose and share on social media. And stay tuned for the next DevRel Roast show. Some of the questions that we had today may repeat on the next show, so we get more perspectives, and some may not. So more surprises to come.
So now that you know that, it's like a university exam. Some questions might repeat, so maybe you can prepare behind the scenes. But we will not tell you that. So if you're here and checking it, I think there was a couple of people who want to come on the show. So you might come prepared, but we will never give you all the questions. Say that, I think last thing you can do is to go and check daily.dev, platform for developers, where we all suffer together. And we talk about DevRel, we talk about different things. I think that we have topics, we have blogs and videos about all the technologies, about Prisma, about Sourcegraph, so you can check them out. And yes, say that. I think that we'll have the next episode on the 25th of June, but that's not out yet. We already have the speakers, good ones. And yes, so if you're in the chat, you can say bye. Thanks again, Nikolas. Thank you so much, WK. Looking forward to meet you in person, WK. Nimrod, we will meet in person.
Thank you for having me.
For sure.
Thank you, folks.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, WK. I want you to show what's behind you. I know that.
Well, it's the rule of vibe coding. It's on my Twitter timeline.
Nice.
Perfect. I tried web coding and absolutely hated it. So, but this might be a topic for the next one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this episode. Bye everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day and your web coding day. Bye everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.